What's up, CS32? This is my Pset 2 final turn-in. Sorry for the bad video, but it's all I could do. And yeah, let's get into the code. So part A, we wanted to make sure that when a dialogue doesn't finish with an end quote and just ends the paragraph instead of having an end quote, we wanted to make sure that we can still capture that dialogue, put an end quote on it, and yeah, be able to print the rest of the dialogue. So the way I did that was using an if statement, like we said in the code, or like was specified in the Pset. And my if statement was, if the line equals an empty line or \n, and looking for an open quote equals false, which is actually redundant. We don't need that, because if we ever get to that point, we know looking for an open quote will be false, because to get to an empty line or a \n line, we would not still be looking for a close quote. We would be looking for an open quote unless this situation occurs. So this is actually a redundant statement, but I keep it in just for my brain. And then what we do here is we just print the dialogue we had, and strip it of that \n line, so because we don't want to print that empty line in our dialogue. That'd be pretty dumb. So yeah, all we do is we print dialogue, we strip the dialogue, and then add the end quotes to it, and we'll look at our print dialogue statement later in part B, so you'll know how all that works. And then we want to change looking for open quote equals true, because we want to go back into state 0 and then go looking for that next open quote. In part B, we wanted to specify that print dialogue function. Or create it, I guess. So let's look at that really quick. So what I did is I defined print dialogue, and we wanted to just see if we find these dialogues that end with a comma and a quote, and whenever one of those that happens, whenever sorry, hopefully you can see this. Whenever that happens, whenever we find our dialogue ends with comma, double quotations or quotation marks, we want to take the dialogue right up until the last two things of the line, which is the comma and the quotation marks, and just take that and then add a period in quotation marks. So that's switching out, a comma and a period. Oh, and I will show you the part A script right after this. But yeah, so we took the dialogue up until that comma, quotation marks, turned it into just the dialogue without that, and then added a period and quotation marks. And then if that happened, now we print the \n actor, which is what we want to start the line. We want the actor at the start of every dialogue line. And then we printed the first quote and then added that dialogue. And even if this if statement doesn't get triggered, it will still print that dialogue that's inserted into this print dialogue. And nothing needs to be changed, whether there's a period there already there, or a question mark or an exclamation mark. That'll all still work out good. So here, I'll show you. It is talkative 4, the first one, I believe. Let's just switch that out really quick. Oh, sorry. Let's go talkative 4. And you can see that talkative 4 is in there, and then we're going to start it. And as you can see, it works perfectly. If you can see that there. And that is the part A one. Let me quickly check what the part B one is. Sorry. Home view 5. Let's do home view 5 here. And as you can see, typed in home view 5. Oh, sorry, I wrote it twice. There. And as you can see, works perfectly. So the next part is part C. And part C is the difficult part. So yeah, let's just get into that right now. The point of part C, as we know, we wanted to make sure that we're not missing dialogue. If there's already dialogue in the line and then more dialogue after in that same line, we don't want to miss that. So how I did it, I started off with making a function called process line, which is right here. I wanted, hopefully you can see this whole thing. That should be better. I wanted to make sure that, well, let's just go through this. So we're saying when k equals 0, k will be like what number of item in the list that we're on or we want to print. I made dialogue equal to just an empty string so that we'll add on to that stuff later. So it's just empty right now. And then we made looking for open quote equals true. So we're trying to find, we're in say 0, essentially. Now, we went while k is less than the number of things on the list. So that's just like to make sure it continues looping as long as k is a valid index in the list. And then we went if k is equal to the number of items in the list minus 1. So this is just making sure that if it's the last item in the list, we want to make dialogue equal to that item in the list. And then we want to turn looking for an open quote equals false to go into state 1, because there might still be more dialogue on the next line that we need to find. And then we need to find that closing quote, and then we need to, be done. And then we'll have that dialogue. So yeah. And then if that doesn't work, then we just go right to, or if this doesn't trigger, if it's not the last thing in the list, then we just go to else print dialogue, and we print k, and we print the number in the list k. So all this means is we're printing every even time. So because right underneath it, I just say k needs to add 2. So k would be 0, then 2, then 4, until there's nothing left in the list, or it's the last one in the list. And then yeah, that'll just make sure we print all the even items in the list, which is all the dialogue in the list, to make sure that we're printing the right stuff. So now we'll go down to where we actually use this and a little more code for this. So I first use this in this short dialogue piece. So you really want to, I thought that if we have short dialogue, we need to make sure there's no more dialogue after the short dialogue so we don't miss it. So what my code did, I said we need to make short dialogue, right, equal to the dialogue from 1, like equal to the dialogue. So this is making sure that we grab the dialogue from the line, and then we split each quotation mark from the whole line. And after we split that, if it has all the items in the list. And now once we process that list, it makes sure that there's no other dialogue after that in the line, to just make sure that, is working. And we print all the dialogue, because that's what our process line does. And we just need to make sure that there's no short dialogue and then another piece of dialogue afterwards. And yeah, so let's go into the next part. Now this part's the real coding that we had to do. This is right when we're trying to find the closing quote. So now if it's not short dialogue, but we're just finding a closing quote, and then we find that quote, we want to make sure that there's no more open quotes or no more dialogue after that quote. So what I did is, if we just look at the first line of the code, it's if I equals dot find, so we're finding that closing quote. If there is a closing quote, then it won't be equal to -1. And then we want dialog to add whatever the line is up to that I point, +1, onto our old dialog. And then we have that full string of dialog, and then we print it. So that's just the first piece. But now we want to try to find more dialog after that. So what I did is I just went dialog is equal now to the line +1 to the end of the line. And we said there that, and then we switched looking for open quote equals true because we want to be in stage 0 now. We want to look for that new open quote. And now we're saying that if, same as before, we're saying if I does not equal -1, so if there is an open quote in the rest of that line, we're going to split the dialog. So we're going to make that list again. And then we're going to process that line. So it's the exact same thing before. We found that list because we found a quote. And now we're going to process all those little chunks of dialogue and narration that we have into only printing the dialogue. So now when we process that dialogue, when we use process line dialogue, it prints what we want it to print. And yeah, now then whatever, that's the end of the code. And yeah, so that was my part C. I'll show you guys how it works, or that it works per se. Make sure I'm putting in the right one. We want talkative 8. Sorry. And as you can see, put in talkative 8 right there, enter, and let me move this up a little bit. You can see that it works perfectly, or I hope perfectly. Catches everything, nice and smooth. There you go. Awesome. Okay, and now the last and easier part, per se, part D. So I'm just gonna switch this. Okay, so in part D, what we wanted to do is just capitalize. We wanted to capitalize the first letter of each quote, just so that, you know, it looks nice in all the quotes. And how we did that, we were just supposed to, of course, alter our print dialog statement, and it was pretty easy. What we did was, so we made capitalized dialog equal to the quote, which is like dialog 0 is really just like the first thing, which is going to be the quote. When you have that quote plus dialog 1, so that first letter, if you just press dot or put dot upper, which is a Python, it's already a Python function. Python knows what that is. It capitalizes the first letter, and then we add dialog 2, which is just the next letter, all the way to with the rest of the dialog, and we just add it together, so it just makes it that piece capitalized. And of course, our print dialogues they're in our function here, right here actually, to be specific, and they're all like lots throughout our code. Every time we had a print, we just switch it with print dialog, so it will do this. And then, sorry for the last one, let's make sure we're doing the right one. Home view 6. Let's quickly type in home view 6 here. And enter. And show you guys here. As you can see, capitalized, 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 and we're good. So hope that's good enough video for you guys. Hope it wasn't too long, and I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks a lot.